If you were told that the alarm was sounding because of a hydrogen sulfide gas leak, would you believe it? Well, you'd better not sniff around and then ignore the alarm because you don't smell rotten eggs. That's one of the biggest mistakes workers make around hydrogen sulfide. They wait until they smell hydrogen sulfide to protect themselves. Or they smell rotten eggs, and then when the smell is gone, they assume the danger is gone as well, when in reality, it is a matter of life or death. Hydrogen sulfide is invisible, explosive, and flammable. Most importantly, it's deadly. In fact, this ferocious chemical, hydrogen sulfide or H2S, is a leading cause of sudden workplace death. It seems to be everywhere: oil and gas operations, mining and sewage operations, landfills, laboratories, and even public utilities. But you can work around hydrogen sulfide safely if you understand its hazards. It's up to you. In this program, we'll teach you how to work safely around hydrogen sulfide. You'll learn its properties and characteristics, effects of exposure, air monitoring requirements, engineering controls, personal protective equipment, first aid and rescue procedures, and how to avoid exposure. Sour gas, rotten egg gas, stink damp, sulfurated hydrogen, hepatic gas, and sulfur hydride. It has a lot of names, but no matter what you call hydrogen sulfide, at high enough concentrations, it's always deadly. Let's look at some of its properties. First, can you see it? No, H2S is an invisible gas. Can you smell it? Well, maybe you think you'll recognize it by its rotten egg smell. After all, even below a safe level of 1 part per million, you can smell rotten eggs. But remember, most plants, mills, and treatment facilities have other chemical odors that can hide or mask this rotten egg smell at low concentrations. So never rely on your nose to recognize H2S. Second, hydrogen sulfide is heavier than air. That means it will collect in low-lying areas like cellars, pits, and vaults. Third, hydrogen sulfide is an extremely flammable gas. If there is the right amount of H2S, between 43,000 and 460,000 parts per million, and the temperature is right, H2S will explode violently. Keep in mind that hydrogen sulfide is deadly at low concentrations without an air mask and will kill you before it becomes explosive at 43,000 parts per million. The temperature at which H2S will spontaneously explode is called the autoignition temperature and is 500 degrees Fahrenheit or above. In order to eliminate H2S's explosive property, hydrogen sulfide is purposely burned in flare stacks. However, keep in mind that a dangerous and toxic gas, sulfur dioxide, or SO2, is emitted. Sulfur dioxide is twice as heavy as air and will suffocate you. It can severely irritate your eyes, nose, throat, and respiratory system. And with long-term exposure, it can cause tissue damage. Fourth, hydrogen sulfide is soluble in water, oils, and most organic liquids. But when H2S is agitated or when temperatures increase, solubility decreases. This causes higher concentrations of H2S to be released. Also, remember that liquid solutions containing H2S are acidic and will irritate your skin and eyes. Hydrogen sulfide reacts violently with strong oxidizers, metals oxides, peroxides, strong alkalis, and active metals. And it reacts with some plastics and rubbers. Lastly, hydrogen sulfide is corrosive. A byproduct formed from this corrosion is called iron sulfide scale and can often be found in vessels and pipes containing H2S. This material can spontaneously ignite when exposed to air. If you clean such equipment, be sure to keep all surfaces wet to avoid ignition. Also, keep in mind that H2S gas will cause hydrogen-induced cracking or sulfide stress cracking to metal that is not designed for H2S exposure. This cracking could result in potential leaks and contribute to serious fall hazards. Inhaling hydrogen sulfide is the most dangerous route of exposure. Depending on the concentration and length of exposure, hydrogen sulfide will affect you in different ways. For example, concentrations above 100 parts per million will normally cause you to lose your sense of smell within a matter of minutes. On the other hand, after being exposed to concentrations of only 50 parts per million over an hour, you may also lose your sense of smell. The following general guidelines may help you. However, don't rely on them to determine if you've been exposed. Just keep in mind what can happen to you at these different levels. Up to 100 parts per million, you'll smell rotten eggs, your eyes will burn, and your respiratory tract will be irritated. Eventually, you'll lose your sense of smell, experience headache, dizziness, and coughing. In addition to these effects, from 100 to 300 parts per million, you'll become drowsy. Eye and throat irritation is more severe, and possibly you'll experience pulmonary edema, which is respiratory difficulty due to fluid in the lungs. Up to 600 parts per million, you'll lose your sense of reasoning and balance, and eventually become unconscious. Although these effects may vary from person to person and the length of exposure, any concentration over 600 parts per million will kill you almost immediately. To avoid these severe effects, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, has established exposure limits. The permissible exposure limit, or PEL, is the amount that you can be exposed to, averaged over an 8-hour per day, 5-day work week. For hydrogen sulfide, the PEL is 10 parts per million. The short-term exposure limit for H2S is 15 parts per million. States, industry, and scientific groups also have exposure limits for hydrogen sulfide. Ask your supervisor which limits you are to use. Keep in mind that hydrogen sulfide's warning properties are poor. You may not realize you are breathing hazardous concentrations until more serious symptoms develop. OSHA requires your employer to closely monitor the air in your workspace, and there are a variety of ways to do so. First, fixed monitors are located where the possibility of widespread contamination exists. A combination of visual and audible alarms will indicate when hydrogen sulfide reaches an unacceptable level. They are calibrated to alarm at the PEL. Portable monitors are also available. These either assess the presence or absence of H2S. Some even give you a digital readout of the amount of H2S. Portable monitors are either handheld or attached to you. Regardless of the type you use, never rely solely on your monitor. If you suspect H2S is present, don't wait for an alarm. Move out of the area immediately, upwind. You should be trained in how to use, respond to, and maintain monitors properly. Being trained can mean the difference between life and death. OSHA requires your employer to eliminate or reduce hazards in the workplace through engineering controls. One of the most widely used is ventilation, either natural or mechanical. Natural ventilation is provided by normal airflow. When relying on natural ventilation, note the direction windsocks, streamers, and flags are blowing, so you'll know the safest way to escape in case of an emergency. In addition, living areas should be located upwind of potential gas leak areas. When natural ventilation is insufficient or ineffective, explosion-proof and spark-proof mechanical devices such as fans and blowers can be used, especially in confined spaces. This equipment should be positioned strategically around wellheads and shale shakers, for example. Hydrogen sulfide is a major toxic agent responsible for many deaths in confined spaces. If you are required to enter tanks or other confined spaces containing hydrogen sulfide, be sure you are trained first. This training must comply with OSHA Standard 1910.146, covering confined space operations. Don't relax when working with hydrogen sulfide just because you see ventilation in place. Remember that engineering controls are just that, controls. They are not guarantees. Your company will institute a respiratory protection program to protect you from harmful levels of H2S. This program must include thorough annual training as specified in the respiratory standards set by OSHA and ANSI, the American National Standards Institute. This program will include fit testing, proficiency drills, maintenance and medical surveillance. Fit testing will ensure that you are wearing your breathing apparatus safely, with a leak-tight seal between the mask and your face. Do not wear beards or sideburns because they prohibit a leak-tight seal. Do not wear contact lenses because they cannot be worn inside a full face piece. If you normally wear eyeglasses, you should be fitted with a face piece spectacle kit. It will hold your prescription lenses inside the face piece. Medical surveillance includes periodic medical reviews. If you're a new employee, most employers will require you to take a thorough medical examination. This exam will alert your employer and you of any pre-existing condition, such as a respiratory problem, that might be aggravated by H2S exposure or prevent you from wearing your breathing apparatus. Simply speaking, there are 3 types of respiratory protection recommended for hydrogen sulfide environments: escape packs, airline units, and self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA, rated for 15, 30, 45, or 60 minutes. Remember, your breathing apparatus should always be positive pressure type. Never use air purifying or cartridge type in hydrogen sulfide environments. Positive pressure type provides a slight positive pressure inside the facepiece, preventing contamination from entering even if leaks occur. If leaks do occur, the positive pressure ensures that fresh air is leaked outward, rather than contaminated air leaking inward. First, escape units are completely self-contained, providing you with an air cylinder rated for 5 or 10 minutes, and should only be used to escape from, not enter into, a hazardous environment. Second, airline units supply air through an airline or hose during normal use, but should be equipped with an emergency escape air cylinder that can be used to escape in the event of airline supply failure. Depending on the job task, you may be required to use your airline with an SCBA rated for more than 15 minutes instead of the emergency escape air cylinder. This way, you can move from one working area to another. This type of SCBA, which is rated for 15 minutes or longer, allows the air cylinder to be used for entry into a hazardous environment. The only limitation is that no more than 20% of the air supply can be used to enter. A warning device alerts you when approximately 5 minutes or more of air remains, allowing you to exit the hazardous environment. Be aware that the working times for SCBAs will vary, sometimes greatly, with a worker's size, physical condition, SCBA experience, and the nature of the work being performed. Remember, if you are stressed, you'll use up more air in a shorter amount of time. Few situations are as frightening than when you or a coworker are overcome by hydrogen sulfide. Knowing what to do can mean the difference between life and death. If exposure to hydrogen sulfide affects your eyes, flush them with clear running water for 15 minutes, forcing your eyelids open if necessary. Then seek medical attention. If a hydrogen sulfide solution contacts or irritates your skin, remove exposed clothing at once and rinse skin thoroughly. Make sure you wash clothing before putting it back on. If you are in the immediate area of a leak or a release, follow these steps. 1. Hold your breath, but do not inhale to do so. 2. Move upwind or crosswind and away from the leak area. 3. Protect yourself by putting on an appropriate breathing unit. 4. Proceed to a safe assembly area. This is a predetermined location that is designated for personnel to gather during emergencies. Always follow your company's specific procedures for escape and rescue from hydrogen sulfide environments. But if you rescue a victim, always protect yourself first. Put on the proper breathing apparatus before attempting to rescue anyone. Don't become another victim. Proceed in pairs whenever possible. This is known as the buddy system. Lift or drag the victim to an upwind area. If the victim has fallen from an elevated platform, be aware they might have sustained a neck or spinal injury. Be sure the area is safe and gas-free before removing your mask. A portable H2S detector should be used to assess the area. If you are not trained in first aid, alert supervisory personnel and activate the emergency response system immediately. Always remember, the shorter the time between when a person is exposed and when the emergency response team arrives, the better off the victim will be. If you've been trained in first aid, alert supervisory personnel and activate the emergency response system. Then check the victim for breathing by placing your ear over the mouth and nose. Keep the airway open. Check for foreign objects in the mouth and use your fingers to dislodge them. Look at the victim's chest to check for rise and fall. Listen and feel for breathing. If there's no breathing or weak breathing, administer rescue breathing using a pocket mask equipped with a one-way valve. Next, check the victim's circulation. Check for a heartbeat or pulse at the side of the neck. If there's no pulse, begin CPR. Persons overcome by H2S should be sent for medical attention immediately and receive a medical release before returning to work. To help you avoid exposure to H2S, first, know the location of the emergency exits, as well as emergency phone numbers, and know the location of the safe assembly areas. Second, remain wind conscious. Be aware of windsocks, streamers, and flags at all times. And if indoors, make sure adequate fans and vents are being used. Third, know where an emergency self-contained breathing apparatus is and be skilled in its use. Fourth, know how to read the H2S detection, monitoring, and alarm devices that warn of dangerous H2S levels. Fifth, obey no smoking policies, because hydrogen sulfide is highly explosive and flammable. And finally, be familiar with posted safety rules, warning signs, and especially your company's specific procedures regarding hydrogen sulfide. Hopefully, the next time you hear an alarm, you'll be prepared. Whatever you do, don't wait to smell for rotten eggs. Hydrogen sulfide is about much more than rotten egg odor. It's deadly. Still, you can work safely around hydrogen sulfide if you understand and respect its potential dangers. Take hydrogen sulfide seriously. It's a matter of life or death.